Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. With us this day as co-host Daniel McAdams. Daniel, good to see you. You know, we have a special guest today.
Yeah, we do, Dr. Paul. Good morning. I'm looking forward to it.
Very good. Our guest is Gary Heavin. Anybody that's been working with us for very long knows the name because he has been very, very helpful in getting our program and our organization going. So we deeply appreciate that. But Gary's interested in helping out wherever he can, and he's been doing this. He's done so many philanthropic things. He's used his own money to travel and help people. And right now, boy, it's an exciting thing what he is up to now with the help of others. And I think what he's doing is such a great demonstration on what might happen if you didn't have too much government. You know, too often governments come in, and I knew government would always interfere with private people trying to deal with FEMA problems. And I think there's a little bit of that already. The private people would be, if they were just released to do it. And I think this is an example, not only of helping to correct an injustice, what Gary will be talking about, but also, you know, just the principle of things. And that to me is so good because it's thrown at all of us, and I've heard it so many times, oh yeah, if you didn't have Social Security, would people all die when they're 50 years old because they're going to starve to death and the government's not taking care of them? All that nonsense. And turns out, of course, our methods and the things that we've been fighting for, and you've been so helpful in, Gary, is that there's an alternative to that, and that if you want a better alternative and better results, you have to look for the voluntary way, and that system is available. Gary, why don't you tell us about this? I understand there may be some big news coming Monday, and there's quite a few people that have recognized this, and the opposition to what we do have lost a lot of steam, a lot of credibility, and yet we never can let our guard down. So hopefully we can counteract it. Gary, exactly what's in the plans for you, and tell us why.
Well, Dr. Paul, thank you for having me on, and I feel like I'm visiting with my friends, of course. It's funny, I find myself needed to do things in spite of the government or because of the government. You know, the helicopter rescue program in North Carolina after the hurricane was in spite of the government because they simply weren't there. But what we're doing this next few days is because of the government. And I'd like to share this with your audience. I'm sure they want to know. So on Monday at the inauguration, President Trump has promised to pardon the J6 prisoners. And at the moment, as best we can tell, there's 300 prisoners located in 75 prisons across 35 states. And so I'm working with several organizations to be there for these people when they're released. So I'd like to share with you what we're doing and what our listeners can do to participate. So we have over 100 volunteers that we refer to as ambassadors that are going to be at the gates of these 35 prisons starting Monday afternoon in anticipation of the Bureau of Prisons literally throwing them out on the streets without any notice to family if Trump follows through on his pardons. Our ambassadors are going to be there to make sure these people are safe, they're warm, they're fed, they've got a hotel room, that they get connected to their families, and then if they live nearby, we're going to drive them home. But we anticipate a number of them live a great deal away from where the prisons are that they're going to be released from, and these people are going to need a ride home. So we created what we call Operation Airlift. And I've got volunteer jet aircraft and crews on standby to be able to go to these cities and pick these people up, these men and women, and take them home in a jet turbine aircraft where they're safe. We're treating them with dignity, and we call that Operation Airlift. Then there's another group of people that simply don't have a home anymore. they've been incarcerated for 2 or 3 years, and they've lost their family, they've lost their homes. So we have found what we call transitional homes in several parts of the country where we can bring these people so that they have a place to live and that they're taken care of. They get the counseling, the spiritual support that they need. So this program is in motion right now, and we're simply going to see what Trump does. Does he follow through on his promise? And we have to be ready.
Gary, what's fascinating about what you've just described is the fact that you need to do this is all we need to know to understand that this has been an American gulag. These people are political prisoners. They were there for political reasons, some of them for 4 years. We've talked about it on the Liberty Report probably dozens of times. Literally from day one when they started getting arrested, we said this was not an insurrection. This is a scam. This is a way to try to hurt President Trump, outgoing President Trump, and to, more importantly, hurt his supporters. But listening to the several operations that you are putting together with the groups that you're working with just demonstrates to us what we thought all along, that these people are being treated unbelievably badly. And if any other country had done this to the political opposition, you better believe the State Department would be right on it, and they would have a human rights report about how terrible this country is. So it's really shocking to hear that this is even needed, Gary. It's shocking to understand that people will be dropped out of prison in the middle of the street with no money and no clothes and nowhere to stay. I don't know what to say about it, Gary, but thank God you guys are helping out.
It's typical. We've unfortunately lived under a tyrannical regime that was lawless, that was abusive. Solzhenitsyn wrote that book, Gulag Archipelago, and the fact that these people are in 35 different states, many of them deliberately moved the furthest they could from their families. Many of them are being moved this week to new locations while we try to figure this puzzle out. This goes beyond tyranny. It goes beyond injustice. It is vicious. To realize that we live in a country where we have a Gulag archipelago with political prisoners. Most of them had nothing to do with violence. The doors were opened by the Capitol Police. They were invited in. They simply took a little tour around. And so for the last 4 years, the FBI has hunted these people down as if they were terrorists, shown up with SWAT teams in the middle of the night for grandmothers that it's simply shown up there to exercise their right to free speech. Never again can we let this happen in this country. And what we're doing right now, there's an opportunity for your listeners to stand up and help us. You're going to have a link to a Give, Send, Go where they can donate money to help these people, because we're going to be paying for meals, hotels, clothing, wellness needs. We're going to be feeding a lot of these people and caring for them indefinitely. And any of the resources that are left over are going to go directly to these heroes that hopefully will be set free on Monday.
Gary, I'm glad you mentioned something about free speech, because in a way, I think that's a very important issue here, because that's what they have to do. They have to silence some people. And I think there's all degrees of that. Most Americans now have finally heard about, but promptly forgot, and that was the incarceration of the Japanese Americans, which was a lot more, but the principle was the same. But I think even today, we have a lot of this attempt in different fashions. The incarceration and the denial of liberty is being done all the time. You take this principle of canceling somebody. It hasn't put him in a prison. It's not quite as evil as that, but it's still an attack, because people don't understand what the purpose of government is. It's not there to domineer and tell us how to live. There's been no fighting and killing each other. But I think that exists. But I think this is so important because, it took a long time for people to start talking about, the Japanese incarceration. And I just wonder, I keep thinking, wonder what it'll be like 10 to 15 or 20 years ago, will they still be talking about the atrocious way, the way our government treated these people? And hopefully they are, but I hope they start thinking about that right now, and that's why I think what you're doing is very important to call attention to it.
The Department of Homeland Security has designated Ron Paul supporters as terrorists. I'm certainly guilty of being a Ron Paul supporter. Christians, pro-life, Catholics, and you know, when they've made that designation, they're just looking for a trigger opportunity to act on it. So we've had people in power, truly evil people, that have been waiting to pounce on grandmothers and liberty-minded people that had the courage and understood the responsibility of speaking out and exercising free speech. And then they acted on it. They imprisoned them, they've tortured them there, they bankrupt them. The level of suicides from these people, these 1,500 people that have been charged by the federal government. And by the way, an out-of-control federal government, an FBI that literally were criminal interactions, along with the Justice Department, and even the prisons, the Bureau of Prisons have allowed torture, unbelievable solitary confinement, isolating these people, denied medical care. And this is America where this has happened. This is almost beyond belief. So we've got to get these people safe. We've got to restore their lives. They need to be filing lawsuits against the federal government for all sorts of crimes and restore them. And most importantly, those of us that have the courage need to speak out and demand that this government is of the people, for the people, by the people, not the enemy of the people.
Yeah. I want to read something, Gary. Now, I was just doing a little bit of research before we started looking at some of the, because there has been a, I think from the D.C. jail where a lot of them are held, one of the prisoners started this kind of D.C. gulag video log, and his name was Jake Lang, and it just happened upon him. This is a letter that he wrote back in October, just 8 days before, or 6 days before the election, urging people to support President Trump. Now, obviously, we on the show don't support candidates, but I think when he talks about the way he was treated, I think it will really focus the mind on what had been happening for 4 years. Now, here's Jake Lang. He posted on X back in October. Last week, I was shuffled like an animal, chained like Hannibal Lecter, with my hands in a black box handcuff torture device that left my wrists bleeding. I was moved from the #1 worst prison in America, Brooklyn Federal Prison, to Washington, D.C. jail, the Gulag, for my upcoming November 12th. 1,400 days without a trial, 4 years a Democrat political hostage. He goes on to say, to encourage people to vote for President Trump in 8 days. And then he says, for 4 long years, our families have desperately clung to one idea, that God is still good and he isn't done with America yet. The promise has helped us, our community, fight through the insurmountable odds. He says, our lives have been destroyed by the very tyrannical government that usurped power over our nation, the hydra of all evil known as the feds, taking over the state sovereignty and bloating America into despotic police state. He goes on, and his crime, as he points out, the FBI Gestapo kidnapping him from his home, inflicting insane, cruel, and unusual punishment over 900 days for the crime of being a Trump supporter. It's amazing to hear what kind of torture, and I'm sure he is not the only one to experience this.
Oh, that's a perfect story, and there's 1,000 stories like that. Daniel, I'm really glad you read that. And this is a call to action for the Liberty Report listeners. Please go to the website, the link to donate to Freedom Ambassadors. We need to get resources to these people. And by the way, and Daniel, I gave you this, if you could post it in some way, we need more aircraft. So if you happen to be someone with access to turbine aircraft, contact that email, which is info@paladinjet.com. and let them know that you're volunteering your aircraft. So we have plenty of resources available next week. And guys, I appreciate all that you do for freedom. Dr. Paul, you're a great inspiration for all of us. I'm honored to get to spend time with you and even fly in my jet to DC every year. I know you enjoy.
Well, we are going to close down, but Gary, I was going to suggest you emphasize, what people should do, and I'm going to have you do that one more time, because a lot of people, understand the issue, but what do I do now? And I got that question a lot in campaign. All right, Ron, I agree with this freedom stuff. What do I do? Whatever you want. Well, we don't want to quite do that, but one thing we want them to do is pay attention to this. But we'll finish up with you giving them the easy thing to answer, because we have to do something, and that's what we're trying to do. Because what we've been witnessing here is, I consider an evil and atrocious treatment of people, and it's so important. I think this project is so vital. So give us that one thing that if a listener just tuned in, oh boy, I want to do something. What should they do? What should they remember?
But remember that this is finally an opportunity for you to stand up and help, to be part of this. And by going to the link that's provided there, you'll be able to donate money that's going to meet the needs of these people. And again, not just making sure they've got a hotel room when they're thrown out on the street and meals and so forth, but we're going to be providing all sorts of mental health services and housing for those that have no place to go. And share that link with all of your friends, with your Facebook links, and get the word out there. There's a message here that we're going to send to the American government, that we, the people, are not going to stand down. We're not going to be told to shut up. We're not going to be afraid to speak up. And this is a message that the American government needs to hear. And one last thing, this is a little controversial, but is Trump going to pardon them as he's promised? All of them unconditionally on Monday. And the more of us that are talking about this, that are sharing it with each other, the more pressure he has in his administration to keep his promise. And I believe that this promise is a litmus test for all his other promises. If he doesn't set these people free, people that were supporting him, by the way, if he doesn't set them free after all the pardons Biden's done, then he's going to let us down. I think he's a better man than that, and he's going to do what he promised. And we're going to finally see some justice for these 1,500 people and their families that have suffered. So share this, donate, please. If you've got an aircraft of turbine quality, write a note to info@paladinjet.com so we can get a few more aircraft on there. And let's hope that Monday we're going to see the new Trump administration keeping its promises to the American people.
Hey, Gary, can I jump in just for half a second? I'm sorry, but you reminded me of something that's very important. You used the word all, and this is very important. And Jake, who I read his piece earlier, they were very confused about what J.D. Vance said the other day, that the violent, quote-unquote, violent protesters would not be released. He made the point that none of these men and women have had a trial. They should be considered innocent right now until they're proven guilty. And he also made the point, and we know this from watching the video, that a lot of the people ended up being accused of violence and assault were actually assaulted by the police and by the feds beforehand. So urge, as you point out, all of these people to be freed.
Yes, and my good friend is at Mar-a-Lago right now, and J.D. Vance, pardon my French, had his ass handed to him over this. It was a stupid, irresponsible thing to muddle that water. So he's had to come to Jesus. In a way, it's a good thing, because Donald Trump needs to understand we have very limited patience this time. This time, we expect promises to be kept. And this is the litmus test. If he keeps this promise on Monday and he sets all of these people free, we can have hope that he's going to keep his other promises.
Okay. Very, very good. And Gary, we have to thank you very much for your energy and all your contribution to the cause of freedom, and especially what you're doing right now. This is great. But we will be looking next week for a follow-up because there may be some more activity. I'm sure it will be a benefit. So far, just the discussion of this is a benefit, even though there's been groups around this country for a long time trying to call attention to this terrible thing that our government has done to our people. So once again, Gary, thank you very much for coming on the program, and I want to thank our viewers for tuning in today for this special report. Please come back soon.